Hi, good morning, evening, and afternoon to all of you. I'm Saleha Qureshi, today's moderator for the proceeding. Um, on behalf of Sustainable Development Policy Institute and Embassy of Denmark in Islamabad, I welcome you all to the Inception Workshop on unlocking pathways to support the implementation of carbon markets in Pakistan. Before I get into the core of the discussion, I would like to provide a brief overview that what we have in store today. We initially have a technical presentation from SDPI, and then after that, we will have a roundtable discussion on exploring the pathways for the potential implementation of carbon markets. And after that, we will have a question and answer session from the online audience as well as in-person audience as well. And after that, we have a concluding remarks. So before I further proceed, I would like to provide a brief overview that how actually we started this project with the Embassy of Denmark. Like in the backdrop of global climate change and energy security concerns, green and sustainable development has increasingly become a priority in development plans of both Denmark and Pakistan. And under recent commitments made by both countries, Denmark and Pakistan goals of reducing emissions by 70% and 50% by 2030 respectively, it is apparent that green cooperation and response to the multifold challenge of economy, climate change, and energy are mutual aspirations of both countries. Although Denmark and Pakistan have been engaging in a cordial relationship to address Pakistan's sustainable development challenges, the cooperation can be further expedited under a few new initiatives program in which we are going to explore the mutual opportunities for cooperation and accelerating SDGs, potential avenues of investments around climate resilience, and best practices in terms of capacity building, knowledge sharing as well. While it is witnessed that Pakistan has been a low emitter of GHG emissions, that is 0.1%, and it is ranked as one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. Despite that, it is witnessed that due to the economic challenges and climate change challenges, there is need to address a common goal, that is carbon markets, which act as a key enabler of global goals in short and medium term commitments. Under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, it also allows countries to voluntarily cooperate with each other to achieve emission reduction targets set out in their NDCs as well. Despite availability of significant opportunities for development of carbon markets, given that it's economy with low carbon footprint, Pakistan has not been able to harness the potential of carbon markets. No local national carbon entities are there to currently act for the implementation or expectation of carbon markets. Although in 2019, Pakistan formed a national committee on establishment of carbon markets with an aim to identify countries' potential for implementing domestic and participating in international carbon markets. While Pakistan Ministry of Climate Change reported on different carbon pricing instruments, country is still struggling to grapple with its complexities, understand ramifications, and develop an effectively implemented structure. Thus, there is an ample opportunity for Pakistan to learn from an effective implementation of this market from the Denmark's expertise. Although Denmark's policy tools include carbon tax and policy influences around adaptation, mitigation, we can learn from their best practices, and we can learn how these best practices, knowledge sharing can be implemented in Pakistan's context as well. So under this project, we aimed the following objectives: that we want a holistic strategy for integrating sustainable and green solutions in economic policy by leveraging carbon credits as a key tool to reduce carbon emissions and promote economic sustainability. Secondly, we to align economic and environmental policies with multiple sustainable development goals like SDG 7, SDG 11, SDG 12, and SDG 13, that how we can actually create a more sustainable and resilient economy through incentivization of carbon markets. And also we are going to, with Denmark, to understand that how we can build the capacity of the key stakeholders in establishing the carbon markets in Pakistan by learning from their best practices, their knowledge sharing, and their tools, how they actually implement in Denmark, and now how we can integrate these things into the Pakistan's context as well. So this is the brief overview that why we have actually started this project and what is the brief idea behind that project as well. Now we have been joined by public sector, private sector, and as well as the development partners, and we need their inputs around how we can actually build the carbon markets in Pakistan, how we can actually build the capacity of the stakeholders who are actually working in this context, and how the knowledge sharing process can be expedited in a prosperous manner as well. So just for the online audience, I would like to lay down some housekeeping rules that I request all the speakers to please keep their microphones off, and when they're speaking, so they can turn on their cameras and their microphone as well. And the event is currently being recorded on the social media platforms of STPI, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Sustainable Development TV as well. And you can share your suggestions, your inputs. The persons who are online with us, they can just put their suggestions and questions in the chat box, and we hopeful that after the end of the session, our extreme panelists or extreme experts can answer these questions as well. So now proceeding further, I would request our Executive Director of Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Dr. Abid Suleri, for his opening remarks on this Inception workshop. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Saleha. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending from wherever you have joined us online. Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed colleagues. It's indeed an honor to be part of this eminent gathering, which would be discussing a very pertinent issue of today that is not only relevant to the world, but extremely relevant to Pakistan. And it is how to make the best use of carbon credit, how to make the best use of carbon markets, how to make the best use of climate financing, not only in order to combat the weather extremes and climate change, but also in case of Pakistan, one of the urgent problems that is haunting us today, and this is deficit of foreign exchange. Our economy needs foreign exchange more than ever, and to me, carbon markets, they are one of the low-hanging fruits by which, if we can implement carbon market mechanism, we'll be able to smoothen and bring in the dollar inflow into Pakistan. But before proceeding further, I would also like to thank the Embassy of Denmark in Pakistan for their support and for their cooperation in helping SGPI to unleash this and unearth the potential of this very important area, which often goes ignored. Today, the meeting, it is, of course, meant to bring in all the expertise which are available in Islamabad, in Pakistan, around carbon markets, so that we can learn from them, we can do this mutual learning, and we can create awareness at policy level. And as you know, that at policy level, we are still struggling with finding who will be the focal ministry to take these things forward, whether it would be Ministry of Climate Change, whether it would be Ministry of Finance, whether it would be Ministry of Economic Affairs Division, finding out who will be the anchor, and then building their capacities to take these projects forward to get benefit of the provisions of Article 6 and of Paris Agreement, and of course to connect dots which are already here in Pakistan in order to establish some functional carbon markets. So these are some of the broader objectives that SGPI intends to achieve and intends to achieve under your guidance and support. This is one of the first of its nature's consultation, but we'll continue with it, of course, in our flagship Sustainable Development Conference. But also we would like to take some of the learnings to COP28 and also bring back some of the learnings from COP28 to Pakistan. So this journey of knowledge, it starts, and as we always believe that it's a two-way learning. We are here to learn from the experts, and will definitely be trying to be a bridge between this knowledge pool and the policymakers, so that Pakistan can actually unleash this potential, and we can gain and benefit from our due share in the global carbon market. I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of my colleagues at energy, clean and green energy, and climate change resilience and circular economy units. Their presence and their dedicated research would complement what is already being done in Pakistan, and of course, together we can create a difference. Once again, thank you very much for joining this STEAM panel discussion today. And my special thanks to colleagues from Denmark Embassy who have joined us in person and online. Over to you, Salia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abid, for highlighting that what actually our objectives are, that who the focal ministry and who will anchor this process in Pakistan under Article 6, and also we will expedite this process in our Sustainable Development Conference, our annual conference, and as well as this agenda will be discussed in COP28 as well. Thanks for highlighting such interventions and your pertinent questions. And now I would request for the technical presentation from STPI, Dr. Khalid Waleed, who is the research fellow at STPI. He will be presenting the potential implementation process of carbon markets in Pakistan. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Salia. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this very pertinent and very timely initiative by Denmark Embassy and STPI, so that we can dive into carbon markets and how can we make or formulate efficient markets to complement our economic growth and to bring another revenue stream for Pakistan and for sustainable development as well. Well, this is an inception meeting for this project. Taking inputs from this meeting, we would be developing a detailed outline for the report on carbon markets and effective implementation of carbon markets in Pakistan. Concept is very new, so we would be looking for technical advices. We will be looking for inputs from you as an experts and from our international partners who have joined for the international best practices and experiences in terms of carbon markets. So carbon markets in Pakistan, different modalities and potential. I am Dr. Khalid Waleed, as Saleh generously introduced. I am research fellow. My PhD is in energy economics. These are some of the contents of this presentation. Firstly, why do we need to incentivize carbon management? What are markets? Market 101, carbon markets 101, modalities around carbon markets, crisis in Pakistan, potential of carbon markets, how these crises in Pakistan and potential of carbon market is linked, and what are different way forward. Why do we need to couple economic and environmental sustainability? This graph would show you on the x-axis there is GDP growth or income levels. On y-axis we have environmental degradation. There are two phases. Phase one is the scale effect, in which growth is coupled with environmental degradation. We have seen this from 18th century, 17th, 16th, and so on, 19th century, and then 20th century, that Global North has produced carbon emissions coupled with enormous amount of economic growth and industrialization. Second stage is of composition and technique effect. You start to transform your production processes and you couple economic growth with environmental improvement. But this is not suitable for the case of developing countries. For example, Pakistan is like here, where environmental degradation is already happened. We are facing adversity of climate change and our income level is very low. We need to go here where economic levels are high and environmental degradation is low, but we cannot do this, by linking environmental degradation or environmental improvement with our economic growth, it would hamper our economic growth. We need to couple environmental degradation or decrease environmental degradation along with economic growth or GDP increase. How we can do it? Firstly, integrate sustainable energy and environment into our macroeconomic policies so that we have economic growth, macroeconomic stability, and environmental improvement at the same time. Second is we develop industry of environmental sustainability. So it works as an industry and it bring profits, it bring revenue streams into the country. Then develop market for sustainability initiatives. For example, this carbon market, circular economy market, and permaculture, and so on and so forth. We need to foster foreign direct investment into carbon market so that it is more linked with economic growth. Lastly, inter-industry carbon trading, regional and international carbon trading. This is sort of a structure economics market 101, carbon markets, modalities of carbon markets, and different questions. What is market in economics, or what are efficient market? Well, market is a place where economic agents can gather to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. Here we are considering carbon as a good, so that we can efficiently trade it in the market. What are different economic agents? Well, there are buyers, there are sellers, there are regulators. Buyers generate demand, producer produce, and supplier regulator ensure that there are no externalities. In an ideal market, this is how price is determined for a commodity, and this is efficient price, which is determined through the interaction between demand and supply. This is the efficient supply. But let's assume that production of a commodity includes some environmental damages or other sort of damages, which means the cost is now improved. The market supply and demand would not be efficient. Cost would improve, it would shift your supply curve, and market price would be higher than it is anticipated in supply and demand interaction. So we need to charge more for that good, which generates damages in terms of air pollution, in terms of other environmental damages. So this is known as externality. We need to internalize this phenomena. We can do this by two methods: either tax those commodities or consumption of those commodities which are producing pollution or other damages to the environment or other things, or you can subsidize the ones who are getting adversities of those consumptions and productions. And then another thing is that another way is to reduce those damages or offset those damages. How can you tax? You tax the industries, you provide carbon subsidies. How you reduce it? You put quotas, you put cap and trade, and then carbon markets, credits, and offsets. These three options, quotas, cap and trade, tax industries, they sort of slow down the fast runners. They hampers your industry, they hamper your economic growth. These can be happen in compliance market in terms of carbon trading. Carbon subsidies, there is limited fiscal space in Pakistan for these sort of initiative. We cannot afford to give carbon subsidies. We are under IMF program. One viable option is that we establish these carbon markets, carbon credits, offsets in voluntary market. So we need to avoid taxation, subsidies, quotas as they create market inefficiencies. What we can do, we can create another market which is efficient and which can solve this environmental degradation problem. As what would be the role of carbon markets? Then it would provide flexibility. Other countries can trade their pollution certificates and others. So I think hard to abate sector can get benefit. Stick versus carrot approach. I just mentioned that stick in these circumstances of economic turmoil. I don't think so. Stick measures would work. It will depends or badly affect our industry as well. Capital mobility, economic value, and incentivization. And then there are spillover effects of carbon markets, biodiversity recovery, and then indigenous community as well. Talking later, it was earlier. There are two types of markets: voluntary markets and compliance market. The voluntary carbon market enables private parties to buy and sell carbon credits, representing the avoidance or reduction or removal of GHG gases from the atmosphere and climate. In terms of compliance market, well, we see compliance market in EU under EU trading system and other markets in US as well. Compliance markets are created and regulated by mandatory international, national, and regional carbon management regimes. These are four key actors or agents involved in carbon market. First one is the project developers. They develop these carbon projects so that to reduce or avoid carbon emissions. Then there are regulators, registries, evaluators, monitors, so that they can assess or they can verify the carbon credits or carbon generated certificates. They set criteria. Mostly they are from government, but what we are arguing or advocating is that we should establish some sort of expert body, technical experts in it, so that this is efficient and they can benefit the market as well. Then third, there are intermediaries in terms of carbon exchange, brokers, traders, their responsibility to provide liquidity in the market and how we distribute from project developers to buyers. Lastly, there are buyers. They could be international buyers, they could be regional buyers, they could be industries, governments, and institutions, etc. So there are four agents in the market: project developers, regulators, brokers, traders, and lastly, the buyers. What is carbon credit? Well, everybody would know because this is a very buzzword kind of thing. One carbon credit is equal to 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide, or in some market, carbon dioxide equivalent gases, and are bought and sold through international brokers, online retailers, and trading platforms. One carbon credit equals 100 kgs of CO2. According to NASA, in 3 months, an average car produces about 1 carbon credit, or equivalent to 1,000 kgs of carbon emissions. There are two types of carbon credits: reduction credits and removal credits. Reduction credits, avoidance credits, are generated by activities that reduce or prevent emissions. In terms of removal credits, or CDRs, they generated by activities that take GHG out of the system, out of the industrial processes or atmosphere and climate. This is sort of a depiction of 1 metric ton carbon dioxide equals to 1 large house, I guess. This is the trend. The dotted line above shows the business as usual. If we continue to produce, this is the global trend, continue to produce at the similar level we are having today, the global carbon dioxide emissions would be like this. We need to decrease them by blue bars. So there is a demand, there is a need to establish or incentivize carbon reduction, carbon removal from the climate, from the atmosphere. Then again, there are challenges in terms of project developers. There could be supply issues, there could be cost involved in it, quality, how to ensure the quality, what would be demand for project developers who are developing these carbon projects. In terms of regulator, registries, evaluators, monitors, integrity would be a very key challenge. If government is involved, assessment would be a very key issue. ensuring that ensuring market confidence or confidence of buyers and sellers, that would be a challenge. Different regulations so that market would work efficiently in terms of exchanges, brokers and traders. There are market complexity because the commodity we are going to trade in this market is a different kind of commodity, which is needed to be measured, which is needed to be monitored, which is needed to be scientifically assessed before we put it into the market. Then we need to establish some principles, cost, and for the buyers, awareness is needed. I mean, many industry would never know in Pakistan or in developing countries that there exists some sort of framework which can incentivize this carbon reduction. We need to create markets, and most of all is we need to create will for these markets and initiatives like this. What are different principles? I would go quickly. They should be real. Carbon credits should be real. I mean, actual reduction should be happening. They should be measurable because without measurability, we cannot determine their price. They should be additional, marginal to what it is happening. Unique and traceable. They should be verifiable. We would be needing verifying agency for that. Leakage optimality. Industry should not go somewhere else where restrictions or regulations are not at strict. They should be persistent. They should be fostering climate equity, not benefiting already benefiting capitalist or industrialist. They should benefit indigenous and marginalized communities as well. Cost should be very important in this regard, and scalability. And lastly, they should be innovative. They should foster innovation so that production processes are more streamlined, more sustainable, more cost effective, and importantly, more environmentally sustainable. What is potential of carbon markets in Pakistan? First, I will discuss reduction potential and then the removal potential. This is linked with Pakistan's crisis in terms of energy, in terms of economy as well. Well, first kind of carbon credit or commodity you trade in carbon market is forest management, through forest management. Obviously, there is a potential for Pakistan to establish these kind of credits as well. Control and management in deforestation, this would decline deforestation. Pakistan already have a very lowest ratio of forest in terms of area. Almost, I would say less than 4% of Pakistan's land is covered under forest. We need to have, we are suitable because we are a labor abundant and land abundant country. So we can have this sort of forest management going on. In terms of livestock, the total carbon or GHG emissions from livestock in Pakistan is 109 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. We can capture methane. In terms of methane, Pakistan is one of the largest emitter in Pakistan. If Wasit could verify, I think we are in top 10 countries in terms of methane emissions. We can avoid high potency GHG emissions. It would bring some co-benefits like improved air and water quality, additional energy, economic opportunities for farmer as well. In terms of energy is one of the largest emitters in Pakistan in terms of GHG gas emissions. Around 220 million tons of carbon dioxide is emitted through energy initiatives. We can have energy efficiency, fuel switching, renewable energy. Just a very rough estimate, if we try to mitigate this 220 million tons of CO2 emissions, we would be generating 10 billion USD per annum if we try to reduce or if we try to remove this sort of carbon from atmosphere. In terms of households, 40 million tons of CO2 emissions is generated through households. 60% of households use firewood. So in terms of cook stoves, in terms of modern cook stoves, we can generate these sort of carbon credits, and market is there. We can solve energy problem. We can solve environmental problem with one initiative, that is carbon markets. By the way, natural gas is depleting in Pakistan. When it is depleted, we would be looking for alternative fuels that would be either firewood or electricity. Both currently have carbon intensive industries in Pakistan. Fugitive emissions, again, methane capture, ozone depleting substances. In Pakistan, 3.94 million tons of carbon dioxide. These are some potential of carbon markets in terms of removal. Afforestation, we have seen Billion Tree Tsunami Initiative. It would provide additional natural carbon sinks, etc. Improve air quality, sustain local ecosystem. In terms of agriculture, 120 million tons of carbon dioxide can be removed. Another industry in terms of carbon market in Pakistan. Second last is the Mangroves. Sindh Delta Blue project recently earned. Initially, that was $200 million USD, and then it has increased to 400 million USDs. It will provide additional natural carbon sink. Co-benefits would be green jobs, habitat, biodiversity impacts, marine restoration, adaptation services. Then lastly, which is very technical and technology intensive, is direct air capture, which is very far away in Pakistan, but wanted to put it here as well. So these are the projection and targets in Pakistan. By 2030, in 2023, total GHG emissions are 400 million tons of CO2 equivalent. By 2030, it would increase to 1600. With financial assistance, we are targeting that we would be reduce it by 50% from 1600 to 800 million tons of CO2 equivalent by 2030. And without financial assistance, we would be reducing it to by 15%. To sum it up, this is a long-term step-by-step process. First is introspection. We need to have need assessment, resource assessment, targets, projections, measurability, verifiability, and how we can link it with local knowledge, because it is a very international kind of initiative, very newer to Pakistan's context. We need to align it with local context as well. Then integrate, we need to integrate political will into it, regional integration, local integration. Dr. Abid mentioned that we need to have ministerial integration, who would take lead, or how we can collaborate between ministries, Ministry of Finance, MOCC, public-private integration, federal and provincial integration, because after 18th Amendment, market's kind of a tricky subject in terms of jurisdiction, forward and backward linkages and their integration, then indigenize, incentivize, and then lastly, implement. How we are going to implement these, what would be the institutional framework, what would be the market framework, and how would we monitor and evaluate this. Lastly, I would love to say that use this chaos of climate, economy, and energy as a ladder for sustainable energy practices. So it would bring economic growth, it would bring energy practices, sustainable energy practices, and environmental sustainability at the same time. These are the key questions for the discussion. We need to solve this mystery around these four agents. What are different need assessment of project developers? What would be the different supply issues? What would be the cost, quality, and demand in terms of regulators? How we can ensure integrity, how we can assess, how we can build confidence of the market, how regulators can be effective regulators in terms of brokers, traders, what would be the complexities around market, what should be the principles, knowing that there is a context of Pakistan involved in it, which is a very labor intensive country, labor abundant country, and carbon capture or carbon market is a very capital intensive kind of initiative. And lastly, for buyers, what buyers should do, how awareness could be spread, how will can be spread, and how markets can work. So these are few questions. And for the international speakers, we would be looking for best practices, how we can establish their best practices and implement here in Pakistan, knowing the local context of Pakistan. So that's it. Thank you so much. Looking forward to a very insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for the wonderful presentation. For this inception workshop, that what we are actually seeking in terms of how functional carbon markets work, and what are the what is the cost, scalability, and issues, and what are the innovative approaches we could add into the Pakistan context as well, and also how supply cost and issues can be implemented and can be addressed well in this context as well. So now we are moving towards our next session, that is panel session, panel discussion on the implementation of carbon markets. But before that, I would request everyone to please introduce themselves, their name and their organization. So starting from you, sir.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum ji. My name is SN Kamranji. I'm the CEO of SKP Carbon. We're a consulting firm based out of Lahore. And we have been consulting in carbon for the last more than 10 years, since 2008. And I have let's say, a track record of we've developed and monetized carbon credits for millions of dollars for a lot of large corporates in Pakistan. And at the moment, we're also looking at all the different climate registries for carbon markets. And we're also setting up Pakistan's first cook stove project under Article 6. And yeah, that's it. Basically.
I'm Maruk Durrani from the Human Development Foundation. I'm working as the program specialist for a sustainable environment program. And currently HDF is new to the carbon market program. And we are looking for investing in projects that contribute to the carbon credits. And we are working in the domains of afforestation, efficient stoves, and water management area, catchment areas, and all those kind of programs. So we look forward to be part of the carbon markets in a sustainable manner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid Waleed from STPR.
Thank you. This is Dr. Umar Mukhtar. For, I would say, especially for the public sector, to bring it into KP, whether with for KP forest, KP has a lot of forest, KP has a lot of hydel potential, KP has a lot of, as somebody just mentioned, issues around cook stoves. So we are currently exploring how to bring it into the voluntary carbon markets in KP. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and hi everyone. This is Zainab Naeem and I am working here as Associate Research Fellow at STPI and currently looking after the program on ecological sustainability and circular economy. And as Dr. Khalid has quite evidently explained that circular economy and carbon markets are interconnected and interlinked. So we'll be looking into this project that we are discussing today, and we are very much open to suggestions and recommendations that we are going to get from all of the experts sitting here. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I'm Akil Jaffrey from Private Power and Infrastructure Board, formerly ADB. I'm looking after policy and international cooperation. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Samreen from Bahrain University, Islamabad. I'm an associate professor over there. My specialization is in environmental economics, and basically I'm here to learn and how to inculcate that knowledge to our youngsters or learners so that they can know about it and they can overcome those issues quite well in their professional lives. Thank you.
On both on the industrial decarbonization side, we've currently convened 25 of the largest textile exporters in Pakistan and are driving the Pakistani private sector towards firstly reporting and setting targets on net zero, as well as actually helping them develop those decarbonization pathways. Under that program, we are also the issuer for renewable energy certificates in Pakistan, wherein we have onboarded more than 200 megawatts of renewable energy projects in different corridors already. And then we are working with the KP government now to bring in their projects and the renewable energy certificate portfolio. This is primarily in the hydel space. On the nature restoration and conservation side, we are actually working with private stakeholders, private landowners to identify biodiversity and ecosystem restoration hotspots. We are also working with the Punjab government, where we have allocated around 20,000 acres for reintroduction of species. So the idea is to actually involve and introduce environmental instruments such as credits, both biodiversity and ecosystem restoration and carbon credits to sort of incentivize these works. Again, great to be in the presence of some of the more experts on this space in Pakistan, and looking forward to the discussion. Basit.
Thank you. This is Basit. So I work at Renewables First, which is an energy transition think tank, mainly focusing on supporting the energy market and clean energy market in Pakistan. Lately, we are also delving into, supporting, having the similar initiatives towards carbon markets and overall climate change markets in Pakistan. And we are also, working with MOCC in developing the net zero targets for Pakistan. So yeah, not much of an expert, but really looking forward to hear from the key experts at the table. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I'm Fahad Ali from United Nations Industry Development Organization. Currently, we have concluded a project called Sustainable Energy Initiative for Industries in Pakistan, where we have worked on renewable energy and energy efficiency. And now we are working on decarbonization and net zero for the industries in Pakistan, in the process of developing a project. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Zainab Babar. I'm from Energy Unit of STPI.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maheen Rehan. I'm working as a project assistant at STPI.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Zainab Mumtaz Paloj. I'm currently working as a focal person, Policy Solutions Lab at STPI, and also working as project assistant at Center for Private Sector Engagement.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zain Ali Khan. I am a student of tourism and hospitality, and I'm what we call a social activist.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mayor Ali Khan from Abbottabad, and Assalamu alaikum ji. Sayyid Mohammed Shahriar from Sustainable Energy and Economic Development Program.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Larib Kiani. I'm communication specialist at STPI.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Alashan. I'm a graduate of environmental sciences, and I'm currently working as a project associate. Project assistant at SDPI.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. My name is Tahir Densa, and I'm running this web TV. I'm director STTV at STPI.
Oh yeah. So assalamu alaikum ji. I've been meeting you off and on from different platforms. My today's hat, which I'm wearing, it's basically I'm consulting for Blue Carbon, one of the organization. Which is just like having interaction with the Ministry of Climate Change on ITMOs under Article 6.
Now, may I please request the online participants, so please introduce themselves as well. Starting from, Kosh, please go ahead.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. I am Ashok Kumar. I am a regional representative for Vada for Asia Pacific region.
Thank you. Yes, Shahzad, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shaheen Abdullah. I'm heading investment banking at JS Bank and also have climate finance and structured finance reporting to me.
Hello, my name is Mohsen Ali. I'm looking after sustainability initiatives at JS Bank, and we're also looking after the GCF projects that we're currently developing and the current GCF projects that we have executed within this year.
Zen, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. This is Zain Rahman, and I'm working as a program manager for one of FCDO's 50 million pound project focused on economic growth in KP. I think Umar may have already shared some of the details. We're essentially a program connecting investors to project developers and are actively working in the VCM space. At the same time, we're kicking off engaging with the government and doing some work on the government capacity building focused in KP. So looking forward to the ideas being discussed today.
Yes, Ms. Vada, please.
Hi, everyone. So this is Vada Malik. I am the CEO of Perfectus Advisory Services, which is a niche boutique investment advisory firm here in Pakistan. So over the past 1 year, we've been working on carbon projects as originators and developers. We are in the space of blue carbon in Pakistan, and very recently, we're also working with the fuel switch project in Thailand as well. And carbon credits is going to be a big part of it. Thank you.
Yes, Irfan sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. This is Dr. Ibrahim. I'm working as an independent consultant for World Bank and ADB for climate finance and carbon markets.
Okay, thank you. Muhammad Ibrahim sir.
Thank you. This is Ibrahim, and I'm working as senior technical advisor for WWF Pakistan. I'm forester basically, and currently I'm working on Mangrove forest carbon offsetting project. And at the moment we have developed the PDD document for Vada. It's in the drafting stage, and we have initiated some plantation work also already under this project. In the past, I worked on RED Plus preparatory phase with the climate change ministry. We completed their GIG inventories and their subnational forest monitoring systems and conducted all the forest inventory for them and submitted the reports. So it's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Lydia, if you can please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Lydia Mukoyung. I'm a senior legal consultant at Climate Focus. Climate Focus is an advisory firm, an international advisory firm that provides services in climate finance, climate policy, and nature-based solutions. And one of the areas we work on is carbon markets, and we've been in this space for about 2 decades. In terms of carbon markets, we support governments on developing carbon market laws and regulations, but also governments to just develop their strategies around carbon markets and to understand how carbon markets can support them in meeting their mitigation goals. In terms of the private sector, we work with a range of project developers, with financiers, with investors to help them structuring their transactions, but also on contractual issues. And one of the things that we are currently doing is we are implementing a USAID funded project in Pakistan, which the aim of the project is to strengthen VCM in Pakistan. And currently we are doing a needs assessment to understand what is the status of VCM in Pakistan in terms of capacities, in terms of regulatory policy frameworks, And then we will provide recommendations on further activities that could be conducted by USAID. And this could be a range of activities from regulatory support, capacity building, from infrastructure, but this will depend on the outcomes of our needs assessment. Yeah, thank you for that. And just something else to mention is that as part of this assessment, we will be conducting a validation workshop, and we will send out invites to most of us in the room, and hopefully we'll also get contributions from those who are active in Pakistan in carbon markets. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the online participants. Ms. Adika, please introduce yourself as well.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Saida Hadika Jamshed. I'm working as a carbon market advisor, attached with Ministry of Climate Change as well, and working on other things as well. Thank you. To see so many familiar faces, Lydia, Ashok, and on this table as well. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And now we are officially starting the panel discussion on the implementation of carbon markets in Pakistan. So we have been joined by the public sector, private sector, and the government sector, as well as the banks as well on this discussion. I already mentioned that this is the project which we are currently doing with the Danish embassy, and we are actually seeking that what are the gaps which are currently needed to implement the carbon markets in Pakistan. How do you see the capacity building activities could be implemented, and what are the knowledge gaps and effective regulatory measures could be taken in the context of Pakistan? So I would request initially Dr. Umar Mukhtar from SEED. Sir, actually you are doing work on carbon markets as well. What are your thoughts and what are your suggestions around that what type of gaps already existed in Pakistani market in implementing carbon markets, and also what are the need assessment which actually we need to build capacity for the stakeholders in Pakistan? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Samreen. So as you were just mentioning my name, I was talking to Adika about possibility of a basically like online course or some basic course on understanding voluntary carbon markets. I think the biggest issue is, I think everyone knows better than me here, voluntary carbon markets. I'm no expert on carbon markets, but the issue really is that most of the people, especially on the government side, I'm not talking about Ministry of Climate Change or alternate energy board, public and private infrastructure board, people who already I think are aware and much more knowledgeable about these things, but general department, especially in provinces, there not much awareness of this concept or proper understanding of the concept and its potential. If I'm not wrong, for example, a lot of our projects, big transport projects or big tree afforestation projects in the recent past, didn't basically use this particular thing or facility to generate revenue. And especially as Dr. Abid just mentioned that in the current economic crisis, imagine what natural advantages we have. So this is a great natural advantage for us if we can use our forests or new renewable energy sources projects to generate these carbon credits and then get that foreign revenue. So, and this is kind of like a double benefit for us, definitely for climate, but also for our economic growth. So I feel one of the basic gap I see missing is awareness about voluntary. We talk a lot about it, but at times I don't think that everyone understands the basics of even this important concept. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the potential gaps which actually exist in Pakistan. Now, I would request Ms. Hadika Jamshed, if you could please tell us what ministry is looking for in terms of carbon markets, what you have identified the gaps, or what capacity building do we need around this. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I missed your presentation as well, which you presented initially, but just going to give a very brief overview of what Ministry of Climate Change is doing currently. And there are so many people I see in the room and online as well who are part of the process as well. So there are a lot of things which are going on. Some are some people like it's communicated to the to the whole sector, but some are just, you know, it's a sharing information sharing session, which I want to take this opportunity and inform you guys about. First, I will start with we signed an MOU with Vera recently, which you guys know about. We have Ashok over here. Angelo is our main focal point from the government side. I'm the main focal point as a technical person. So this is one thing we are looking forward to. We are looking forward to, in collaboration with Vera, to build the capacity of our private sector, to build the capacity of the people who are interested in, you know, moving forward with VCM and VCM projects. We have also circulated within the private sector. We developed a committee on VCM and net zero. The aim is that we have this committee, and through that committee, Vera and hopefully Gold Standard will also come in few weeks. So both of them can build the capacity of Pakistan private sector and also align with Ministry of Climate Change. And Ministry of Climate Change in this whole process will be a convener, will not be a regulator, because VCM needs to function on its own. Private sector is the main stakeholder, and wherever you are selling your credits will be the main stakeholder. Ministry of Climate Change will come in when there is a corresponding adjustments of those credits. And for that, coming to the second part of the work we are doing, we are developing a framework. This framework is not a legal document, it's more like a guiding document for the world to know that Pakistan is open for carbon market, not just for VCM. We are open for 6.2, 6.4 VCM with corresponding adjustments, VCM without corresponding adjustments. So this is basically to communicate to the world that Pakistan is open and which sectors are open, which comes under our conditional and which comes under our unconditional NDCs as well. So this will give the investor from international investor are local developers and organizations like SDPI, WWF, I've heard. So a better view, but and now that as things are a bit confusing, like will we get the corresponding adjustments or not before starting a project? So that kind of clarity you can get from that framework. The framework has also notified a working committee. This is a representation from all the provinces, all the line ministries. And this working committee is developed to develop the guidelines. Then we go into specific guidelines of 6.2, 6.4, how we see the corresponding adjustment happening. We are proposing a corresponding adjustment fee for the national level. And then the projects, obviously, whoever will be the entity, if it's a provincial entity, if it's a private entity, they are going to negotiate on the equity sharing of that. I agree with Umar Saab. I completely agree. There is a need for capacity building, more about we are getting a lot of people coming up and saying that you know, we want to do a carbon market, we know about carbon market, but it's a complex topic globally as well. So not being very hard on our people as well. I do believe that every time I go to any meeting I learn new thing. And even I also believe that a lot of people at the ministry, including me, and a lot of international colleagues don't know full story, because everything has so many rules and so many guidelines. So we require that kind of capacity building where people do understand what's the difference between, you know, what is corresponding adjustment. VCM credits can be sold without corresponding adjustment. That's something which people really get confused on as well. And then 6.2 and 6.4, the bilateral agreements with UNFCCC. Other than that, we are for the compliance market, for the emission trading systems in Pakistan. That's not something we are looking at for the short run. That's a long-term activity, but starting the preparation from now, developing an MRV. We are starting that process soon, developing those structures and policies for domestic carbon market to start in Pakistan. But again, there is a lot of researches which needs to be done. We are in the process of developing marginal abatement cost curves. Once that when we have those curves, we can tell what are the sectoral breakdowns of our NDCs. That will give more clarity on the kind of projects which are open for carbon market to invest in. Then there is another assessment we plan to do, is to have that marginal abatement cost curve of carbon pricing out of that marginal abatement cost curve, because all the emissions you can reduce, the abatement potential of each sector is not the abatement potential of carbon markets. That's a separate area we're looking into.
These are the things we are developing a registry as well. We have a demo registry ready. It's with Climate Data Trust, with Singapore and World Bank. So that's something which is going on with our donor support. With other projects going on, we are also identifying some PINs projects, which prioritizing some projects for Pakistan so that we can take it. There's a way that investor come and do the feasibility and take the project and propose to government. Then we are looking into a way where government can identify the projects and propose to the investors directly, so that the middleman income generation can also be used for Pakistan. And I agree with Umar Saab on the second point, that at this point, this is a huge opportunity. And as I always say, that we entered the party late when the CTM started and we lost the opportunity. Let's not do that for carbon markets. And there is an appetite from international investor to work in Pakistan. And the more clear point of view we have, the more clear policies, the frameworks we have, the less rigid kind of communication we have with our investors internationally, the more finances will flow in Pakistan and we can generate a lot of revenue. And with that, a lot of co-benefits as well. So I endorse the projects which include forestry, but coming from someone who has been part of the NDC's process as well and climate change, I do believe that we need to focus on those projects which generate a lot of co-benefits, which are difficult to do, which are upper hanging fruits for Pakistan. Forestry and all are good, but they're those projects which are easy to do as well. And initially we can take advantage of that. But as institutes, I will request you and suggest you to look into those projects which are also not very popular and easy to do as well. Projects into waste sector, projects into industrial sector, projects into water sector. So there's a lot of opportunity in that, and projects which generate a lot of benefits for the community, because then your credits will be better sold in the market as well with good high integrity. So those are the things. I'm looking forward to some of the colleagues sitting over here. Asad Saab can speak about the blue carbon negotiations we are having for 3 days with MOCC. Then SN is here for the cook stove. I've seen that he's working on that. So a lot of people are, PET is doing a lot of work on capacity building and different projects. So just a brief overview of the work that the government is doing also, and how government is envisioning in the future that how they can support this process. And this process, especially if you talk about VCM, it needs to be supported, not to be regulated, not to be led by the government. When it comes to 6.2, 6.4, we are the main focal points and the stakeholders, then the lead comes to us. And even though that's the part of the corresponding adjustment, if it's in a province, then they become the main stakeholder as well in revenue. So that's all about it. So thank you. If anything specific, let me know. Thank you, Hadika. Well, I'm glad that ministry is doing too much on the carbon credit side, and you are already in the pipeline that you are developing the framework for the carbon markets as well. And now, before I'm going towards Akil Saab, I would request Akosh, who is from the Vera, that how do you see what are the gaps which currently exist in the implementation of carbon markets, and what actually you are doing around this theme? Yes, over to you, Akosh.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Hadika. And as Hadika already informed all of you that we recently had a MOU with the Pakistan government, Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination. So in our MOU, the activity we are going to do, the main activity we are going to do from Vera side is we are doing the capacity building program to the ministry staff and the other relevant stakeholders identified by the ministry. So these capacity building program will be provided through webinar, some workshops, seminars, and the other events suggested by the Ministry of Climate Change. So actually, the main topic we have identified so far for the capacity building program, like we can provide a capacity building program on the voluntary carbon market as a whole and in the context of the Pakistan. And we will provide the introduction on the various Vera standards like the RED Plus standard and the verified carbon standards, plastic credit standards, and SD Vista and CCP. And we will also provide the understanding on the Vera registry, how the registry is working, how Hadika is already informed that government is also working on a registry, and they already prepared the a registry, and it will be operationalized soon. So I will a request here. So if the government require any support for operationalization of the registry, so we will arrange a capacity building program for how to operate the registry. And we will also provide the capacity building program under this MOU for the validation verification bodies and the accreditation bodies in the Pakistan. So we can have more validation verification body from Pakistan. And we will also provide the specific training program on the methodology, since our methodology is being revised, and we are working some of the methodology like the forestry methodology, ARR methodology, and the RED Plus methodology. So we can also arrange a specific training on the methodology and the various templates for the VCS program. So, and the same thing actually under the regional engagement team, we are doing with the other countries like India, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, South Korea, and China also. So this is from my side.
Thank you, Ashok Saab. I will just add one thing, that the aim is that the projects which are registered in Vera, we don't have a registry for that. So Pakistan doesn't know how many projects are registered, how much emission is reducing, how much we can reflect in NDCs or not. So this registry will, the aim is that we align it with Vera and Gold Standard, the major two project registration entities, so that it's automatically reflected as well. So that's something which we plan to do in future, so that we have aligned registries with you, and there is more transparent data available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kosh, for highlighting that you are currently in the process of capacity building of the stakeholders of ministries, and you are in the process of developing the voluntary carbon market standards and registry methodology programs as well. Now I would request Mr. Akil Zafri, that how do you see that what actually the carbon markets role in energy sector, especially when we are talking about the stakeholders of energy sector, that how we can build their capacity in the carbon markets?
Me with this opportunity. Carbon markets, although PPIB's or previously ADB's main mandate is with regards to the development of renewable energy sector, and not directly related to CDM and carbon market, but renewables and clean energy technologies can play a vital role in the carbon markets. But here I would tend to agree with what Dr. Umar said, that there's a lack of capacity and awareness especially within the public sector. When we talk about carbon markets, CDM, energy transition, general perception is that it only relates to power generation or oil and gas. What the government within the public sector, people don't realize that every sector of economy has a certain linkage with it, be it transportation, agriculture, forestry, even maritime. They're all interrelated and interdependent. And the carbon markets would certainly, will provide benefit to all these sectors. So going forward, the government has targeted the share of increasing the share of renewables. And the renewables can play a leading role in the carbon markets, and the private sector, I think, is eager to have some structured carbon market, starting with the voluntary carbon market enabled in Pakistan, with the support of the experts available in the private sector. They can certainly play a vital role and mobilize the carbon market. And going forward, this can create the right foundation for the voluntary market in Pakistan as well. The need is to build the capacity within the public sector, and it shouldn't, and that capacity should go forward, and in a way that the policy making and the planning at the government level should cover all these aspects in all sectors of economy. I think the creation of carbon markets in Pakistan would not only help in achieving the NDCs that we have set for ourselves, but that would also channelize the financing for low carbon technologies in Pakistan, which is very important when we talk about, apart from the large scale power generation and for meeting country's demand, for achieving the targets of energy access to all, providing energy supplies in marginalized areas, achieving energy efficiency measures, and developing low carbon technologies in Pakistan, so they can set the right path for provide a pathway for the low carbon technologies in Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Akil Saab, for highlighting that what actually the energy sector need for initiating this process of carbon markets. And now I would request Dr. Irfan Yusuf, if he could please let us know that we actually are doing this work, this workshop and this project with the Danish Embassy. What things should be added to implement the better implementation process of carbon markets? What are the gaps do you see that that could be identified in knowledge sharing and capacity building? So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. I can see a lot of experts who have given their inputs already, and I think there's no point of disagreeing with those who have been indicating different kind of requirements with regards to capacity building, regulatory framework development, and others. I would just highlight a few things which probably I think need to be taken care of while venturing to the market. As Hadika was indicating, that the sectors which would be more promising for the voluntary carbon market in days to come will include those interventions that would have integrated approach and co-benefits associated with it. Probably a simple renewable power project that's been connecting with the grid and generating electricity would not attract buyers being a very conventional kind of a technology. Rather, some of the standards they have not been including renewable power as a conventional power generation plant to be considered as a mitigation outcome or an activity that can be supported through carbon credits sale or purchase. Somebody can say this is harsh. Somebody can say that this is this needs to be reconsidered. But this is how the world is thinking of, and there is a terminology being used which is called high quality carbon credits, and you can Google and search out what basically the purpose and what the meaning of high quality standards, and this is what the people are thinking, that a project this is contributing to the community, supporting the multi benefits, preserving the ecosystem, biodiversity, and environmental integrity. These are the four jargons they've been using. If this a project can contribute to that, that project of course carries value of being considered as a high quality carbon credits owner. So first of all, we need to work with the private sector and the public sector to identify those sectors which can bring more attraction towards those standards where the projects are to register. And then, of course, carbon credits trading can occur. Buyers, of course, they have the intent for buying credits from the high quality standard projects. We need to channel ourselves accordingly. Number two, capacity building is always needed, but the experience which I have so far gained and while discussing uh, this very preliminary thing at how the knowledge gap existing within the institutions, I have seen people know a little bit about how the carbon credits are generated and what are the projects they can take on. However, there is a requirement for deep going deep down with regards to project development, project implementation, and project execution. This is a challenge at this stage. People they think that anything and everything they talk about the mitigation can qualify for earning carbon credits straightforwardly. It's not like that. There are certain requirements that has to be complied with under every standard. We need to create capacity for that purpose. Which projects are going to get registered and which are not. And this is actually what Hadika also was indicating, that we need to highlight those areas, those projects, and those activities which carry the more potential for registration. Of course, the carbon registry is an important element and an important part. We need to get it launched as quickly as possible. At the same time, the pressure strategy that the Ministry of Climate Change is making is a very important element. However, the carbon markets are not going to be very effective till the time there is a inclusive regulatory regime being established. Carbon market establishment doesn't mean only that you are just trading carbon credits. It also means that you are registering your level of emissions at this stage, then you're going towards your ambition to reduce those emissions, and then those carbon credits. Most of the players in the Pakistani sectors, be it in industrial sector, be it in the transport sector, they are not willing to share their knowledge, their information, their material, and their level of emissions at this stage. And till the time they won't be sharing the information transparently and making their all processes available, this will not be viable for those sectoral players to get benefit from the opportunities that are coming in. Fourth important element is readiness and preparedness of private sector. As most of the participants have been saying, that the carbon market is a private sector business, yes, but how the private sector will be starting working on how to manage one important element, as Akil was indicating, that we can report these outcomes, mitigation outcomes, as part of NDC. This is very tricky, actually, and then what I have discussed with the private sector, they're not very ready that their emission reductions activities should be taken on by the government to be reported as a part of NDC. If that the government is going to do, of course, they would require some kind of a compensation, because investment is being made by them, and they are the owners of those projects. And if they are not compensated for those carbon credits that they are earning, of course, there will not be a consensus among those participants to allow government to use those emission reductions as part of NDC. We have to draw a conclusion, draw a consensus with the private sector entities to work on that. If they're allowed to transfer the mitigation outcomes under the corresponding adjustment mechanism, or they can report under the NDC. So we have to work on this thing very, very vigilantly. Carbon trading is basically a trading of an intangible commodity, and till the time we would not recognize carbon credits and as a tradable commodity, this is going to be a challenge for us to keep working on it, and we have to take it on that it should be declared as a tradable commodity. And once it's declared as a tradable commodity, of course, then it will act like stock share, and everybody can sell and purchase those credit. But bear in mind, the sharing and transfer of credits have some kind of limitations, and for that purpose, we need to be very careful and be vigilant what the global guidelines, global standards, global rules, what they say about those. So, of course, that means we need to create a knowledge sharing platform where all this information is made available, and the sectoral players who want to learn from this process, they should have very easy access to that kind of a platform where they can get the information and material. Sixth important thing which I feel is very important for the voluntary carbon markets, it's a support market. We can have buyers, we can have sellers, but how they will negotiate the price, how the value will be fixed, what will be the flow of money prospect, how the auditing things, tax kind of things they will work upon, how the validation activities will be happening. So there is going to be influx of a new stream of players who will be benefiting for this market. And but I have seen that this market segment is not very readily prepared. We need to discuss this thing with our bankers, with our validators, with our auditors, with brokers, that this carbon market is now becoming reality, and we have to jump over that. Seventh thing important, for introduction of markets, we need to venture into this prospective thing stepwise. First of all, we should go with the volunteer markets, targeting with a few sectors where we can foresee a better transactional opportunities, and then we venture into the domestic trading market, because with the introduction of domestic market, that will be requiring that we should set the emission baseline standards and then set targets to reduce emissions from those sectors. Are we ready for that venture at this stage? My understanding is that we are not ready for that. We do not have baseline emission factors for every sector. Until the time we won't do so, it will not be possible for us to do. So that means the first step is to set the emission baselines, then set the targets for capping the emissions from sectors, and then allow the trade. And this is not a one-day process. This will take at least 2 to 3 years to get materialized. 8 important element this whole stream is longevity of the process. If we want the market to run and work in a progressive manner, then we need to give a long-term vision, long-term view of that market's operationals. If in the case the market won't proceed the way it is designed or it has been implemented, the players will lose their interest, that as has been happening, and the people will go away. And 9 important thing which is very important for the global perspective is effective reporting and monitoring mechanism. Transparency and avoiding double counting are the 2 major jargons that the global players have been using. We need to take this into account, and making all those efforts would require a better MRV infrastructure set in place. So these are 9 important things which come into my mind at this stage. We need to build up a better stage for the carbon markets if we want to have a long-term market model set in place. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Irfan. Well, very pertinent points you have mentioned, the 9 points. And I request my all speakers who are online as well as in person that we also seeking that the work which we are doing with the Danish Embassy, STPI and Danish Embassy, how this work can assist in the work they are already doing around the carbon markets. And now I would request Ms. Vada Malik. Ms. Vada Malik, yes, can you hear us, Ms. Vada?
Yes.
Yes, I need your suggestions and comments as you have seen the presentation, that what are your suggestions that we find the gaps around the carbon markets that do exist in Pakistan, and what capacity building or things need to be done around that. Over to you.
Salia, I lost you for a bit.
Yes, Ms. Vada, I said that you have seen the presentation and in which we have highlighted that how does the carbon markets work. So how do you see that, what are the gaps which are already exist in the context of Pakistan in carbon markets, and also the work which we are doing with Denmark on carbon markets? How do you actually see that the work you are doing can assist us in that perspective? Yes. Over to you.
Okay, so a lot of people have said a lot. I'm not going to repeat that. A lot of what you're asking has already been covered. I would say that, yeah, I mean, I spot on, Hadika, when you said, we entered the party late, and we are late. There's a lot of activity going on, in the VCM markets globally. 2021 was the best year so far. Then we saw a little bit of dip. The sectors that we are focusing in Pakistan, reforestation, afforestation, is largely because of the response they get from the market and the pricing in the market for offsets. I think we need to move away from that and maybe develop projects which are the quality of offsets with the transparency, and maybe Vera Ashok can help us, navigate that. A lot of other sectors that we could talk about: carbon capture and storage, renewable energy, hydro, wind, solar, electric vehicles, something that, the NDC talks a lot about. 30% of the vehicles on the roads should be electric vehicles. There is a policy in Pakistan, but I don't know what we've done so far on that. Other countries are really going for it. UK has gone hydrogen, and the Thailand, the country where I am working in, has actually no motorcycle will be registered after 2030. The traditional motorcycles, they will all be electric vehicles. So countries are doing a lot, and what we can actually, and not to forget, before I forget, this plastic credit is something that to promote, circular economy. That is a new thing, and methodology is out also. What are we doing about that, and how are we promoting that? From Danish experience, I think, I'm just going to focus on one point and won't take much time, is how are we engaging the private sector in this whole process? I think the capacity building of capacity builders in Pakistan is going to be where I'm going to start off from. The private sector with influence, large corporates. I'm not talking about MNCs because they have like a corporate policy that is driven from their headquarters, but the local large groups, what are they doing? I know Hassan, and kudos to Hassan, congrats to him for driving the textile sector to join hands for net zero. What about the other hard to abate sectors? I think some experience from Danish experience on how they have engaged the private sector. There is a huge explanation for why these corporates should go net zero. I haven't seen many local large corporates committing to net zero. It doesn't have to be 2030. It could be 2050, but at least they have to start from somewhere. They can get enhanced access to financing from various sources because they have committed to net zero. Carbon also brings them a new source of income. They look better there is an ESG commitment at their end. There is efficiency in their production systems. There's so much that we can actually, how we can engage the large private sector is something that I would like to understand how, countries have done. And specifically in this context, Denmark has done. Also, what kind of options and models are there in the PPP space? If you're talking about afforestation, reforestation projects, then large parcel of lands are belong to public sector. So what can be done to educate how to develop large carbon offset projects where there could be on a PPP model. So those are some of the thoughts that I wanted to place here and maybe trigger a conversation around that. I also want to say that there has been just one very successful mangrove project in Pakistan, and that has fetched around $50 in Singapore exchange. That is what everybody is rushing towards, blue carbon. And so what I want to put to the table here is that where is the commitment of net zero? Why is this all about money? Yes, that's a byproduct of it. And that has to be, whatever you do has to be financially sustainable. But what about other projects? And how can we develop all these projects so that they can prove that, these are good quality carbon offsets. There is a significant MRV system in place, and they can fetch a good price. Right now, you could go actually from 20 to 50. And plastic carbon offsets are like $100 above per credit. So, this is all that depends on the quality of your BTDs and your MRV and all of that. So, yes, spot on, capacity building is important, but not capacity building of the project owners, but I think capacity building of project originators and developers as well. Because essentially, these are the players who will probably trigger the corporates to come into the space. The energy transition alone requires $101 billion. Some estimation from 2018 that we have done in Pakistan. Where is this billions, hundreds of billions of dollars going to come from? Decarbonizing economy is very capital intensive. And large projects need to be set up. I come across a lot of requests on 100 acres, 200 acres of reforestation projects because they're looking at the money aspect of it. But what I want to say is that how is the government facilitating use of these lands for various projects, not just reforestation, afforestation, but large solar projects, other large projects where there is a land requirement. And of course, a fuel switch, which we're doing in Thailand also. I think some sort of drive from the government should be there. The other point that I wanted to make here is that the corporates probably are hesitant because not just because they don't understand the carbon offset and VCM, but also the fact that there is some ambiguity around adjustments. And that which Hadika was talking about. So how does their project would fall under NDCs and the commitments Pakistan as a government, as a country has made? Those are all the questions that private sector would have in mind. We are sitting here working very closely with large corporates, convincing them to invest in decarbonizing their whole production cycles and everything. But I think we also need to be educated. And so this is a question to Akosh also, that, when you're conducting workshops, webinars, and all of that with various players in the market, have you identified any carbon originators and developers in Pakistan? We have none. And this is a missing gap. This is a huge gap in the market here. Everyone who wants to develop a carbon project will eventually need to access some global body, like, Aether, pollination, and all of that. In your existing projects, like, the Indus Blue Delta, they've been advised by international. So why do not we build capacity within Pakistan so that we can originate, develop all these carbon projects locally? We should know what a good PDD looks like. What are the registration requirements? What methodologies could be used? They're like multiple methodologies for forestation, afforestation, RED+, and all of that. I think that's also a space which is being neglected, that, the moderator role in the market is often neglected. And I think how we need to cater to that as well. We'll just stop here.
Yeah, very, very pertinent suggestions and recommendations. I think Akosh want to highlight something already.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vada, for your insight, suggestions for the Pakistan Carbon program. And first of all, I would like to answer your question that the training program towards the project originator. So yes, we are very much open to provide the training programs to the project originator. And sometime actually we have requests from various project originator, project developers. They want to understand, the implementation, how they implement the methodology, how they, use the various standards. So we do provide trainings on their request. And since we have a MOU with the a ministry now, so we have given a part that whoever stakeholder has been identified the ministry, we will provide the training. And I would also like to talk something about, you also mentioned that the project are developing from the Pakistan should be feasible to the Pakistan, the environment, not talk about the project in other countries are getting a good revenue. So, and you also touched about the plastic credit program. So yes, the plastic credit program have a very good potentials, but actually the government has to see in Pakistan whether they have some the EPR system. Like in India, there is a like the mandatory requirement for extended producer responsibility. So for if there is a EPR, regulation, so maybe, it will little bit difficult for, showing the additionality of the plastic credits. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Akosh, and thank you, Ms. Vada. Now I would request Mr. Asad Mahmood that what areas do you think we can address under this project, and what are the gaps to be identified? Over to you.
Thank you very much, and very good interactive session so far. I've been starting because this is like the transition phase from Article 6 CDM to Article 6 is coming up, and a lot of developed countries have already moved ahead quite a lot. And even though during the CDM time period, the basic thing, where again I've been pinpointing the areas as well, Ms. Alia and Dr. Saab, that for the Ministry of Climate Change, that is the national designated NDA authority or agency, whatsoever that last acronym stands for. So so this is something like their capacity should be there, which was the basic bottleneck in the CDM phase as well. And right now, even the technical arms, even though they have GCIC, I wonder if they would have been strengthened and structured and given that importance which they should have given, we would have been in a different scenario, and we can leapfrog if focus is diverted towards them. Because ultimately, scientifically, it's not the ministry that has to do the things, it's their scientific arms, which are developed for under the rules of businesses. So NDC Secretariat was established there, but how effective was that? Again, it was the role which scientifically has to be driven, but not that happened, but not that much which we should have, which we expected. Similarly, in terms of inventories, when we discuss about inventories, so again GCSE comes over there. People are very hardworking there, they have been there, and that's why the inventories have been submitted and all those emission numbers came up. Otherwise, there and that is something that should have been further augmented with human resource and other their own internal HR restructuring and things like that. The youngsters who are like we see in the market, they want certain entries into these areas, and these are the organizations which is at the federal level, and in parallel, once we go into VCM, the provincial exchanges have to be developed, or registries as well, which has to be ultimately coupled with the federal registry for consolidation. So again, there would be a requirement in the provinces to have stock take of their develop their registries to connect with the federal one, and the same methodologies as per international practices. Now coming to the terminology, we have been discussing about high quality carbon and whatsoever is compliant with the UNFCCC rules, regulations promulgated to us, that is of high quality, regardless of other market players whatsoever. They have their criteria in terms of evaluating their projects. So in the, I have to just rush quickly as well, CDM to Article 6. So even though if you see like in the 37 projects that were registered under CDM, like a lot of them were from the renewable energy. I appreciate ADB and the team members which which guided those project developers and the local very few the teams or organizations which worked out, but definitely they had backing of international organizations bringing out $20,000 to $25,000 for developing PDDs. I wish there should have been a project under Ministry of Climate Change to facilitate project developers at that time even to just get shortlist those projects which can fulfill the nationality criteria, and there should have been a market over there in all the provinces. They should have picked one or two, just like under the NDCs and under the reporting, every province has been asked to submit their priority projects and things like that. So period over there. But definitely on the public side, there was ad hocism was there. So we need to get rid of this ad hocism. I know from Ministry of Energy Power Division platform, how in most of the meetings in which host country approvals were given, most of the bundles of those CDM projects came to me to as well to get them reviewed and give the endorsement to the Ministry of Climate Change during the meetings. And then there have been certain names which have been instrumental in the CDM secretariat, Hassan, Sadullah Ayaz, and they have been the backbone of Amjad Saab, and they have been they're in the market even, and still in Pakistan and trying to unfold new things. And youngsters from Renewable First and others, they are also trying their level best. So opening through the regulatory channels is something to, so regulatory channels could be, or barriers could be avoided if there are certain regulations. So we are going in different directions now. So now coming to Article 6, that is going to be a more structured approach. I've been part of a delegation of the His Royal Highness Prince Makhdoom from Blue Carbon UAE, and we had interactions over the last 4 years. For last 4 days, we are just coming from there right at the moment, on ITMOs, because these things definitely have to work in parallel, the markets, but we have started focusing on ITMOs, international transferable mitigation outcomes. So Article 6.2 and 6.4 and whatsoever the things evolve down the line. So again, if you go for, Adhika was referring to marginal abatement cost curves and other organizations. So Delhi Durast jab hoga. So the point is, we should not lose the ship or miss the boat, whatsoever the terminology you use. So the point is, they are doing their level best in the ministry, and she's also there. Other organizations, other people are also there. The point is, we have to go by sector approach. If you try to blend all the sectors for Article 6 and carbon markets into the same regulation framework, there is going to be, just like under the umbrella PC1 projects, if there is any issue in one PC1, all the PC1s get go fired. So that's from a bureaucratic perspective, just to tell them what could be the issue if you couple all the sectors in the one framework. So that's why we took under the ITMO, the forestry sector, which was well organized, and it safeguarded interests of various communities within all the forestry areas. The carbon credit trading mechanism have been there in their acts now since 2017, 18. So they have tried, so by taking advantage of the RED Plus and result-based payments mechanisms, the crediting time, the transition from CDM market to Article 6, but there is certain legal documentation aspect that has to be kept in mind. Nevertheless, the point is like ad hocism was one of the aspects I told you, that there should be clear roles defined. And then our economic activity in Pakistan is something like which is not as per the expected growth rate. So our emissions are not there. So we can maneuver in that for the international carbon market, but whatsoever we have 450 million tons of CO2, and we have to, again, under conditional and unconditional conditions, we will see the increase, and there should be no shying in that, because other countries are doing it, construction for development in the names of emission trading. So that is another angle given to it, because ultimately, so we should also retain some emission. There should be some limitation how much carbon we can sell from Pakistan, and how much we should keep under which sector for Pakistan NDC targets as well, because not all the things are there for commercial aspects to be traded at all. So there should be a key on it. So we propose the nature-based, nature to depth swapping, but politicians like everywhere, okay, Punjabi ka note wala ka mavra nahi bolna chahta, but anyhow, money aspects, they need to see like money coming in rather than like getting waived off your loans, which is in your kitty. So I just like, so there are too many like points coming into my mind, and but keeping in view the time, if there is time, let me know. I can, like, there are 2 or 3 other important points I would like to add on, or I can come later on. Okay, thank you. I hope I have bored anyone.
Thank you, and we are hoping that we will not lose the ship. And now I would request Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim Khan, if he wants to add in something around the gaps which currently exist and the carbon markets implementation in Pakistan, and what actually you are doing around that. How do you see that?
Thank you. WWF Pakistan is actually engaged mostly in the FLU sector. We have worked in partnership with the Ministry of Climate Change on the RED Plus, both for the national FREL and MRV system development and FREL submission, preparation submission. And also for the, during the second phase on the sub-national level, forest monitoring systems and development of the FLU greenhouse gas inventories. So we completed those assignments quite successfully. And here I want to mention that there are good methodologies developed, and those methodologies need to be registered and recognized by international standards like Vada Gold standards. This what I felt when I was working on a project for the Mangrove for the offsetting of their emissions. It's an ARR project, and we are working on that also. So I felt that gap, that we need some good methodologies of our own also. So we have developed some good methodologies, and that need to be recognized and acknowledged by the international standards. This gap I felt. Also, as you all know that the FLU sector is a growing sector. So it's, I think it grew by 50% as compared with other sectors, especially in the voluntary carbon market. So they needs more attention and more efforts also. We are lacking awareness among partners and among carbon emitters who are seeking to offset their emissions. And we also we are lacking awareness among the excuse me. We are also lacking awareness among the communities, they do not know the concept of this voluntary carbon market and carbon sequestration and all these terminologies. So they also need to be aware. On one side, the project developers or the industry seeking carbon offsetting, they need to be aware and they need to be fully taken on board. And then on the other side, the beneficiaries and the communities need to be aware, because they should not be exploited, or they should not be, and there should be some safeguard systems also. So this is another gap. I also felt a gap about some policy issues. We do not have a policy on the carbon markets. The ministry should work on the policy side also. So there should be a policy on the carbon markets also. WWF Pakistan is now working on a pilot project with the Mangrove Industries and Mangrove Foundation. And we have developed the PDD document and drafted that document for the Vada. And it's in the draft stage, and it's a zero draft has been shared with the stakeholders, and very soon we will submit that draft to Vada for the pipeline registration. So if there is any support needed in the FLU sector, so WWF is ready to play its role in your project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Definitely, you have highlighted that what you are actually doing with the Vada, and we are hopeful that we will get this implementation plan soon in the Pakistan. Now, before I would go with the Lydia's comments, I would request Basit Khori, if you want to highlight something, what are the gaps over here?
Yeah, thank you so much. So for me, it was quite an informative session. I think we have more experts here, and probably most of the major points have been highlighted in terms of the carbon markets, and I'm still in a learning phase. So yeah, but there's just some things that I wanted to highlight and probably expand upon when we're talking about developing a new market. The first thing I feel that's missing is basically access to information regarding the actual routes through which you can access the market. So I understand that Ministry of Climate Change and other key consultant companies here, they do have that kind of information, but for a private sector perspective, I think that's missing. So what are the routes to the market to actually get those carbon offsets? And leading on to that, okay, what's the processes for it? I understand there are a lot of capacity building process initiatives being launched by the VIERA, they just mentioned here. So those are the initiatives that should be not just for the ministry level, but also for the private sector level. So they need to be trained as well. So I think that's the kind of information that should be out there. Secondly, I think one of the great things that Hadika also mentioned was, ministry doesn't want to get into the regulator part. I think the best thing that could happen, I'm talking about from the BCM perspective, is to give and make sure that this whole market is developed with a focus on the private sector, making sure that their projects come in. So I think the role of the government and the agencies should be more towards providing the enabling environment rather than coming in as a project developer. So I think that's one of the key things needs to be kept in mind. Thirdly, I think another thing you talked about in your slides as well is where the focus should be. And I think for VCM particularly, voluntary carbon markets, I think the main appetite, we understand that there are a lot of MNCs locally that are working in, but main appetite is internationally. So what we need to be focusing on is basically internal capacity building for private sector in the developer side here in Pakistan. And from the buyer side, I think the needs and the connection needs to be done with the international investors. And I think one last point that I wanted to mention as well was regarding the, so there are a couple of readiness activities that needs to happen in order for a launch of any market. in Pakistan. So not just, providing access to information and collating the information, but presenting a long-term view where this carbon market stands. So there are different mechanisms for it. So if Pakistan, let's for saying for, as Asad mentioned, ITMOs, or if there are, we are coming up with the VCM markets, or if there are SDM. So, what is the outlook of it? Are we going for a sector by sector? So sector by sector, Asad mentioned, is the right approach, but is it for the CDM as well? Is it for the VCM as well? Is it for the other sectors? So my guess is that it would be different for different routes at the same time. So I think that needs to be taken into account. So yeah, pretty much that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Basit. Now I will request Lydia. Lydia, if you can hear us. Hi. Yes, I just wanted to, I just wanted to ask that what are the, what USAID is doing around the voluntary carbon market, especially in the context of Pakistan. Actually, we are running out of time. So if you can just highlight some suggestions, yes.
So I think just to highlight a little bit of what USAID is doing, as I mentioned before, USAID intends to support Pakistan in strengthening voluntary carbon market and incentivize carbon market activities, VCM activities to be implemented in Pakistan. And this requires understanding what the barriers, the challenges, the gaps are. And this is what they are currently doing, understanding these gaps and challenges. And I cannot right now disclose, because we are still at very initial stages of the analysis, and we'll be sharing this in the coming weeks, I think in 2 weeks or so. And once we have these recommendations, then USAID will be able to take up certain activities, and this could be, for instance, supporting regulatory gaps that have been identified in Pakistan in terms of the VCM, but also it could be in terms of capacity building that everyone is now speaking about. And we realize this is a huge gap, both in the public sector, but as well as the private sector. This could also be in terms of even supporting, it could be in terms of supporting infrastructure, but if there's already entities that are doing that, then USAID will not have to take up on this. So this is just a brief overview that I can give on what USAID is doing, and we will be reaching out to, if we haven't reached out to some of you, we've spoken to most of you. We'll be again speaking to different partners and also presenting these findings. But then just to speak a bit from my perspective and from our overview of what we understand as the gaps and challenges in Pakistan in terms of voluntary carbon markets, I think we have all talked about capacity needs, and we have all understood, yeah, there's lack of capacity in Pakistan in terms of understanding the VCM in the public, private sector. But then I think we also need to point out that this is not something special to Pakistan. A lot of host countries that are hosting these carbon projects are struggling with the same issues. And this has led to situations where a lot of countries are coming up with regulatory frameworks, are coming up with policies that are quite restrictive. And we see a cool down in voluntary carbon markets in certain countries once they come up with this kind of restrictive laws and regulatory frameworks, because they have this problem of understanding what the role of the government should be in the VCM. And I'm quite happy that what MOCC is doing and what the government of Pakistan is doing is that they are slow in this, in trying to understand first what their role is, what the role they should play, what the role different actors should play before they come up with some strong regulatory framework. So I think this is key, that this is really done, that the different government entities understand what the role they can play in voluntary carbon markets. If they want to attract the private sector, then they should understand that our role should be incentivizing rather than trying to put, I don't know, strong regulatory frameworks or strong measures that are going to disincentivize investment in voluntary carbon markets. But also what we see in Pakistan are a lot of opportunities that need to be tapped. And I think this is something that we are missing in this discussion. Yes, we have challenges in Pakistan, like a lot of host countries have these challenges, but there are also a lot of opportunities in Pakistan that needs to be tapped. And first of all, we see there are a lot of opportunities for greenhouse gas emission reductions and mitigations. And there are a lot of activities that are being undertaken by both state and non-state actors. I think there's a huge solarization project that is going on by the government. You have the reforestation projects going on, and we have a lot of private sector doing mitigation activities. But what is lacking is identifying how the VCM or carbon markets can be able to finance some of these mitigation activities that are either ongoing or could be implemented. So there's a need to tap into these opportunities that are there in terms of mitigation activities, but helping to understand how can the VCM be able to finance this. And this is something that we found was quite, we find that hasn't been tapped yet, and there's opportunities to tap in it. And then the other opportunity we see is that there's a lot of appetite from both the domestic as well as international private sector to actually invest in Pakistan. So there's a lot of appetite in this. But then there's a few things that are lacking. They feel like there's no strong or there's no clear policy signal from the different government entities. So I think this is quite clear that the government needs to give a policy signal on how they're going to deal with carbon markets, how they're going to deal with different issues. Is it corresponding adjustment, how they're going to treat the VCM under Article 6, and how these markets are going to link. This needs to come out, a communication needs to come out, and the government needs to identify this to just make this public. But also there's a lot of costs in project implementation. Generally, there's a lot of cost, but particularly for Pakistan, because as this was highlighted before, there's lack of local expertise. We do not have enough verifying bodies, validation bodies, what we call the VVBs, project originators. We lack this. And this means that every time you want to develop a project in Pakistan, you have to go and get someone international, which makes the costs really, really, really high. So I think if there's a focus that can be made in building this kind of local capacity in Pakistan so that we don't always have to go look for international experts, then I think this would also cover a lot of project development costs that are quite prohibitive for developing carbon projects. I think because of time, I'll just leave it here, but if there are any further questions, I'm happy to talk about them.
Thank you. Well, of course, the opportunities and challenges come together, and there are a lot of opportunities in Pakistan for the carbon markets. Now, I would request Mr. Fad if you want to highlight something around that.
I think a lot of things have already been said. Just want to add that perhaps just want to emphasize that if there are clear policies and a structure in place, I think the roles could have been clearly defined for private sector and also for the development sector as well.
Yes, thank you. Now I would request Dr. Samreen Babar that how do you see the educational sector and the learners being national climate action initiatives? Yes.
So I was here actually to learn from the private sector and from the government sector. So I just have a small solution for it. If the learners or young learners or educationers or the university graduates are engaged in those activities, like we have a lot of questions, how to implement VCM, how to value carbon credits, and what are the different implementation policies. So if one by one for each question, we can arrange different competitions within the academia so we can get different solutions for it. Instead of just giving a session on awareness that what is carbon market and how much emissions we have done, it will be better if we just pose one problem in the sector, in the education sector, and the students can come up with different wonderful solutions. Practically, I've done it at my level, at the university level. Like they have different wonderful ideas for emission reductions. And if we go sector by sector, such as if we just select the construction sector and specifically cement sector or steel sector, so they can come up with different wonderful ideas. So this can be one of the implementation or workable solutions, that this is in one way they will bring awareness in our youngsters, and on the other hand, this will also give different good solutions to the industry and policy making. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samreen, and it was a wonderful discussion so far. I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, and it was a very learning experience so far. I think Mr. Asad want to add something.
Apologize for your last moment interruption. There are 2 points, like because this is like many organizations and people will follow up this session. So as far as like project originators or the terminology, this is a common terminology which all the carbon hungry organizations say: appetite, carbon credits appetite. It's a like sort of buzzword in the international community, carbon market. So so that is something like the appetite is there, and every country is looking towards long-term commitments. And the good thing is that like under this ITMO, which like looking into, hopefully we'll have a sort of sign-off agreement by the end of this month. Things are moving like from positive perspective. And I will also like suggest Lydia or a coach GEK. Like definitely there are experts over here. They want to facilitate or act as a local project originator. So so the organization like yours can also look into having your localized offices, so that people over here can also work out, and they could be your representatives over here. So and like this is something I've been suggesting through emails to your higher ups in one way or the other at different time intervals, while going through different methodologies and PDD documents, just to self-learn and to keep ourselves updated. So I've been going through all your methodologies and suggesting and guiding people, academia and other organizations as well. So this was one of the things I just wanted to make use of your presence and also submit it through this platform.
Thank you, sir. I will, take it, and I will discuss it internally and look what we can do from our best for the Pakistan side.
Thank you very much. Under this project, we also have the capacity building trainings, workshops, and for the media and for the stakeholders. So we will definitely engage you, you again in this project and this implementation process. It was a wonderful discussion, and we have learned a lot from this. And now, before ending the session, I would request for the concluding remarks, Dr. Sajid Amin, who is the Deputy Executive Director of Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Very good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I hope you can hear me. This is a standard sentence in Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. Excellent. I was listening to all of you last 2 hours, very excellent discussion. And I was rather feeling a bit lonely that a macroeconomist and such a good, brilliant experts on climate change and the carbon markets. But I think that my interest in carbon markets comes from, I see that green financing is going to be the heart of your progress on SDGs, economics progress, and carbon markets will be at the heart of green finance as well. So this really brings me over the couple of years that I've been working on climate change, carbon markets, and carbon pricing. So let me start by congratulating the team SDPI and the Denmark Embassy to partner on this very much needed initiative. And I think this is, though the people were saying that we are already very late, but in one way, we are still coming very timely, that we are hoping that elections go in time and we have a new government. And so I think the most right time and the more productive times to engage with any governments are when they are new and when they are setting the agenda. So in this context, I think that this is a very timely initiative, and you have good enough times if elections go in February, as the talks are there. So you will be able to chalk your agenda for the regulators in consultation with the new government, and then you can put that agenda there. I think if I can, I mean, it was such an excellent and so detailed discussions that it's very difficult for a people like me to summarize it in a very concrete way. But let me just pick on 3 points that I think came. and were repeated multiple times, and particularly towards the end of the discussion. I think one very important point came from the Lydia, that this is also, the challenges are there, but I think the key will be to pick up the opportunities available that you can build on. So what are those opportunities that provide you a foundation to build your work on? That I think will also help you tackle those challenges which are there. So I think a more focus on finding those opportunities as a starter, as a catalyzer to your work will be very important. The second point I think came in terms of your partnerships, stakeholder engagements. And one thing I think that you can do when you are going, there are always two types of stakeholders. The one, those who are for the change, and one, those who are not for the change. To pick up first for those who are for the change, they will act as a catalyzer and again, fasten up, broaden your exposure, broaden your outreach with the stakeholders, those who even are not for the change. So I think if you can clearly identify the stakeholders within private sector, within the government sector, from the international development partners, those who are for the change, those who are for the carbon markets, implementations. So this can help you catalyze the progress on this work, I think. My last comment, given the time constraint, is that you have to work on 3 dimensions, I think, simultaneously. The one is that is coming much more clearly from today's discussion is the raising awareness and sort of what you are calling capacity building on multiple fronts, from development sector to private sector to media. But I think one point that will be very critical, because ultimately it is the political will and the political ownership of this policy changes which are required for carbon. And for that, I always highlight in any of the inceptions of the works or the projects or the programs, that right framing will be very critical. That what do you wanted to achieve with this one actually? And right framing for the targeted audience. I mean, if you are talking to business, if you are talking to private sector, and then you are conversely talking to the government, you may have to have a separate framing to build that political will and political constituency, which can help you make a case.
Sir, you're not audible. Dr. Khalid, if you want to add something, and then we will.
Thank you so much. I think points well taken, detailed discussion. What Dr. Sajid was mentioning, that we need to have this legalized framework or institutional backing of this initiative of carbon market, so that we can have this long-term persistent policies as well. And right framing, he mentioned right that we should frame it for private sector, we should frame it for government sector, we should frame it for development partners, so that everybody sees the buy-in in the carbon market and it can get implemented effectively. With this, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you so much, everyone. Very insightful discussion and very insightful takeaways. Hoping to have these kind of engagements in future as well. Thank you so much, Akosh, and thank you so much, Lydia, for joining us from abroad as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let me congratulate you to the SDPI team for arranging this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.